So it is a very important part of the economy, of course. It's one which is significant, no doubt, but give us an idea of the rains arriving at the right time and actually providing enough water for a change to actually beat expectations.
I think India has been very lucky, and the rain gods have actually blessed India big time this year. So in fact, we've had about 9 to 10% excess rains this year. And as you know, there's an old saying, rain makes grain. And this is exactly what has happened as far as the Kharif is concerned. We've had very good soya crop in excess of about 10.5 million tons, which is almost 2 million tons higher than what it was last year. We've had a very good groundnut crop. And the icing on the cake is that sugar production is likely to rebound big time. Last year we had sugar at around 27 million tons. And this year we should not be too surprised if India produces more than about 32 million tons. So overall, there's been a very good blessing in disguise for the country. And more so, what has also happened is that the late rains which happened, that have ensured that the subsoil moisture in the ground is very good. And that is bound to help the Rabi crop as well. In Rabi, our main crop is wheat and mustard and pulses as well. So overall, I think there are good times for India. And if you really look at it, probably agriculture is the only sector which seems to be doing well. In fact, in the first quarter of this year, agriculture was growing at more than 3.4%. And I would not be too surprised if by the end of the year, agriculture crosses the magical figure of about 4%. So this is good time for India as far as agriculture is concerned. And more so because almost something like 55 to 60% of the Indian population is dependent on agriculture and lives in the rural areas. So these are good tidings, and God is
Atul,
being kind. Yep.
Atul, we saw at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic there in India how people fled, migrated back to their villages and rural areas. Some of them have stayed. Will that actually make the harvesting of these crops more efficient? Will more of them manage to be able to get to the big cities? Because the big problem has always been the amount of attrition that there is in getting crops, etc., and vegetables into the metropolitan centers.
No, it's overall in a different way, the migration of labor back to their hometowns has been a kind of a blessing in disguise again. So what has happened is, with good rains and good monsoons, the harvesting has taken place brilliantly, and the consumption as far as the rural sector is concerned has also increased. As a matter of fact, this COVID has had a kind of a different scenario for the rural sector in India. We've had good rains, good crops, and what has also happened is that the agri prices have gone through the roof. So it is helping the rural sector big time.
Atul, on that note, does that help to increase farmers' earnings then in a year that's been incredibly tough for so many in India?
Sorry, I didn't get your question right. Can you repeat it?
The bumper harvest that you're talking about, is that going to help increase farmers' wages?
Oh, certainly. In fact, this is probably one of the first times when you've had very good crops in the country, and coupled with that, you've got very good commodity prices. In fact, edible oil prices have gone up by about 30-35%, and so has practically everything under the sun. And vegetable prices as well, pulses. So the whole sector has probably gone up, and that's the reason why you see the agriculture growth in India in the region of about 4%, when the whole economy is actually not doing all that well. Agriculture is probably the only silver lining as far as the Indian economy goes.
So 4% growth, what kind of projections do you have for next year, and how will that boost the overall GDP of India?
As far as oilseed for the Rabi is concerned, what we are seeing is that the cultivation or the sowing operations are at a very, very robust pace. In fact, this year till now, similar period compared to last year, the sowing of mustard is above almost 10%. And by the time we are through with the sowing operation, I won't be too surprised if the sowing is more than 15 to 20%. As a matter of fact, the government of India has placed a target of about 12.5 million tons of mustard this year, compared to about 9.3, what we got last year. So even if we discount the government figures, the fact that possibly we could have about 20% higher mustard production next year cannot be discounted. And mustard being a high oil-bearing seed, you could have India producing a million ton more of mustard oil. And who knows, if the prices remain as buoyant as they are, the Indian farmer might respond very, very positively to the price signals. So we could possibly see a growth of about 1.5 million tons of edible oil going into next year.
Atul, what about reform of the agricultural side of things there? It's attracted both support and criticism. What are the long-term implications of the measures? Very quickly, and on another note, will there be enough piyaz, enough onions produced for local consumption this year?
Onion has always been a political hot potato. So onion production got suffered largely on account of the late rains. And I'm sure it's going to bounce back. As far as the reforms are concerned, I think agriculture was one sector which had been neglected for far too long. And our Prime Minister has been speaking from various podiums about Atmanirbharta. Atmanirbharta means self-reliance. And I'm sure all these agri reforms are more or less in the same direction. I would like to especially talk about the Essential Commodities Act, which had actually harmed the Indian supply chain big time in the past. So this time they've got rid of that. And overall, I think the reforms are in the right direction, and possibly that might also see big ticket investments coming into agriculture sector in India from the corporates as well.